Bail Me Out Production Studios in the beautiful state of Arkansas, you're listening to the Shattered Podcast with your host, D. Elias.
Today through Skype, I have Michele Collins from Houston, Texas. How are you today, Michele?
Wonderful. Howdy. How are you?
I'm doing great. So let's start by you telling me about your childhood.
Sure. Well, it wasn't the traditional childhood. Obviously, I wouldn't even be on the podcast if it was. But I moved out when I was 17 years old, and I never went back. Actually, there was a lot of things that were happening when I was 17. I got pregnant when I was 16, and of course that was unexpected. And and then there was. My mom got remarried. My dad moved out, and they got divorced when I was 6. So that always had a really tough, climb for me. I've always struggled with that. And what happened was my mom got remarried. When I was 12, and my stepdad was like charming and really really nice in the beginning, just like my dad. And then he just quickly turned, and I was the oldest. Well, I still am the oldest, but and I'm always the most outspoken. So we didn't clash. We clashed a lot, and I moved out because he started abusing me, and it was just a really tough time. And I had I just had my son, and I thought, hey, I'm going to do the responsible thing, and the abuse was getting worse. So I moved out at 17 thinking I knew it all. I mean, everybody is a teenager thinking know it all, right? And I didn't know everything. And that's what I'm talking about in my comedy show that's coming up is I thought I knew everything. And then kind of the things that happened to me, just figuring it out at 17. And so, I never really was a kid. I never got to be a kid because I was always taking care of my siblings, and I never felt like a kid. And I was always felt different. I'm sure that's something you hear a lot when you interview people. But yeah, my childhood, I don't remember a lot of enjoyable things. I just remember just being miserable forever. I mean,
you just had too many responsibilities.
Yeah, too many responsibilities, and I felt like I was always in the mix and responsible for everything. When I say in the mix, I'm talking about with my mom's decisions and my dad's decisions, because when my dad moved out, he didn't come back, and we didn't have a really strong relationship with him. Even though I would go visit, he was always working, and my stepmom hated us. I mean, it wasn't like I made that up in my head. She'd tell us that she didn't like us, and it was it was just tough being shuffled around through that.
Right. And how did your life in the early adult years?
Oh gosh. So I married my first husband when I was 19. I met him in a bar, of course. I mean, where are you going to meet someone? I'm an alcoholic. Great place to meet someone. And they didn't have online dating back then, so it was perfect. And I married someone that didn't have a job because I thought that, if he didn't have any money, that would be a good way to keep someone and they wouldn't leave, because all the guys in my life would leave. And I was, when I moved out, I had my son, and then I got married because another reason why I got married was I really felt that I needed to be, in order to be a good mom, I needed to be married. Because I was living, as a single mom, as a teenager. I was just brought up that you're supposed to be married, you're supposed to have all these things, and so I got married in the courthouse. It was glamorous, we just decided one day, or I just decided one day that we would get married, and we went down to the courthouse, And yeah, we got married, and it was just like, like a decision. It wasn't really, we didn't plan it. We didn't have friends there. It was, let's go get married. That was kind of how I lived. And then when that relationship started going down, because he was drinking all the time too, and we were always fighting. And when we broke up, that's when I got really, really down, and I started drinking a lot more and partying, and I would leave my son with my mom more and more and more. And it just got crazy. I just was trying to get attention from men, like anything I could do for 5 minutes of attention, because I just, I didn't have a dad around.
Right.
And for some reason, that relationship was so important to me. And that kind of love was so important to me that I was willing to do anything to get it. And so I put myself in a lot of really tough situations. I was already, from the time that I was a kid, I was sexual really young, and I would put myself in situations where I would be like the first time, wasn't the ideal thing. Of course, I'm a teenager, and I just really wasn't protected by my parents, is what I'm trying to say. And I became a stripper because I'm thinking, well, this is already happening. Why don't I do this? And I mean, it seemed like a good idea at the time. I was getting paid, and and that really propelled everything for me. I put myself in a lot of situations where I got abused a lot. I got the wrong idea of love, obviously, and that just took on a whole nother form in my life. And yeah, it was not fun at all. It was not fun.
How long were you a stripper?
Almost 3 years. Yeah, and the funny part about it is, so when I was a stripper, this guy I met in the bar. He was my boyfriend, and he was a bad drug addict, alcoholic, gambling addict, and he was abusive, like physical abusive, and then he lived with me, and then I saw how bad his addiction was, and that's kind of how I gauged my addiction, was around the addiction of other people. And he would be blacking out, and he'd be talking to me, but the conversation was not about the conversation.
Right.
And then he would just not come home, and I was used to that because my dad didn't, and that was a pattern for me that I just, I wanted to chase after someone who wasn't going to be there.
Right.
But he, it's weird because he had a really bad problem, and I think he was in court. I can't remember. He was in court or something that mandated that he go get help for his addiction. So I was helping him go. And that's how I learned about going to support groups to get help. And then one day I was out for, I was smoking meth for 3 days. I was up for 3 days, and he had been stalking me because back, he knew where I lived, and he came by, and he knew that I had been gone for 3 days, and it was the first time I saw him sober, and he told me I had a problem. And I remember this is actually my show, is I locked myself in the bathroom to get away from him. But well, first of all, I mean, he physically abused me, so I was a little afraid of him.
Right.
But I was looking in the mirror, and I didn't look the same, and I'm like yelling through the door that I don't have a problem, like, go away, I don't have a problem. And he was yelling through the door that he just wouldn't go away. And I could tell for some reason that he was sober. And that kind of stunned me. And I thought, well, maybe he's really sincere about this.
Right.
And I took a risk on it, and I went out and talked with him. and we called the 800 number so that I could go to a meeting the next day. And that was the last time I saw him. So he helped me get the help that I need in the beginning, which is so ironic that, I never saw him again after that. But if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have even known anything about getting help. So, I was, during that time when I was a stripper, it was really tough because it just kept perpetuating the abuse.
Right.
And the image that, I needed that. I needed that kind of attention, and that was love to me. I can see that now because I've done a lot of work in therapy, but obviously that just was so not real. But if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have met that guy. And
right.
I may not even be here today. So it took what it took.
So when you started going to those meetings, have you been clean since?
No, I actually, so I was taking medication. I was having problems with my back, and then I had really bad insomnia. When I first got sober, I got really depressed because I had to face all this abuse that had happened to me, and I just sunk so low that I was suicidal before I even came in.
Right.
But then I was suicidal after that too, and I was attempting suicide, and God, I don't even know how. I attempted suicide once, where they actually caught it, and my ex-husband took me in to the hospital. But after that, I would just try, and I would just wake up so I wasn't sober that whole time. At almost a year, I was like, is this what it's like to be sober? Because this is boring. I don't because addicts, alcoholics, we have a problem with being bored. We don't want to be bored. We want to have fun. And hanging out with other people that are having normal lives wasn't fun to me because I wasn't used to that kind of structure.
Right.
And so I did go back at almost a year, and then after I got prescribed medication, I just started taking it. I wasn't taking a lot, but I was taking it when I didn't need it. So I changed my dates. I've been going since 1995, but I'll have almost 13 years this year. But the whole time I've been going. So I've learned so much, and I've seen so much.
Right.
In and out. For 20 something years, I've been exposed to it. Well, I'm really glad. Let me just say really quick.
Okay.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think this is important. It does. You don't have to go back. Okay, it's not something that has to happen. But for me, I'm glad it did, because I needed to remember how horrible my life was.
Absolutely.
And what happened was I started hanging around more dangerous people that were higher up in the drug chain, and then I started seeing that I was going to go to prison soon.
Right.
And it woke me up. But I see people that have 20, 30 years to go out. And I think it's important to just remember how bad it can get, because when I went back, it was way worse.
Right.
Way worse.
How many family members have you lost due to drug addiction?
Well, I'll count my dad as one, but he's still living because he moved when I was 6, and we have had some type of relationship, but it's never been the relationship that a father and a daughter should have. Now, that's from my opinion. And I love him, and I forgive him, definitely. We're so much alike, and I love him to death. But I count my dad as one, but he's still living. And then in the last 2 years, I lost an uncle and a cousin within a year of each other, and then I lost my husband to opioids, and it was right around this time that all this stuff started coming out and people started being passionate about it. So, and I've seen tons of my friends, in all the support groups that I go to, they just one day they're there, the next minute they're not.
Right.
So I've had a lot of loss. The hardest was when my husband passed away, because right before he passed away, I had a miscarriage, and I thought, this is my second chance of being a good mother, because I lost custody of my son and I never got it back.
Right.
I mean, we talked today, but our relationship's not ideal, which is understandable. But I thought, I'm going to get married and then I'm going to have this great life. And, he was on probation and all this stuff, but I really loved him and it was worth taking a risk, but I never thought he would pass away. And it was really, really tough, because all my identity and what I thought would be, oh, I'm going to get married and do all these things because now I'm sober, I deserve it. And it didn't work out that way. And, it was really, really tough, because then I was like, look, I might not ever be married and might not ever have a family again. And that was so hard for me. And I didn't know that I was grieving over those kinds of things. I thought that I was grieving over all of it was him. But it was also a lot of, I have some of the same problems. Why didn't I see this? And also just knowing that I couldn't help him, and that he was also deceiving me. All of that stuff I had to go through, even though that's not really what was happening. But that's the way that I was thinking at the time. So I've had a long road of recovering from that.
When you lost your husband, did it cause you to get deeper into your addiction?
No, actually, I stayed sober through it. And that's what's so crazy, is because I had just started my date over right before he passed away. And I lived in Dallas at the time. And it's like I was the poster child for staying sober. It was a lot of pressure on me, because most people don't stay sober through something like that.
Right.
And I just felt like it was my identity. And when a job opening came up in Houston, I wanted to go, but I wanted to make sure it wasn't for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
So I talked about it with some people, and then I really self-reflected, because anytime that happens is a slippery slope for anybody that has addiction. And, since I've been in Houston, I've been really, had time to really find out who I am. And before, I didn't realize how, because I've been in Dallas for so long, for 20-something years, so many people knew me, that I was really dependent on that.
Right.
And every corner that I was like driving past, I had a bad memory. So I had to be sober, but most people can't move like that, because it's dangerous for people like us to be away from our support. And I've just had to, do some things here to make sure that I have the support that I need. But I stayed sober through it. I couldn't believe it.
Right.
But let me tell you why that happened. Is because when I saw the impact that had on me, and I saw the impact that it had on his family and the people, that, like, how bad it hurt people, and that it didn't just involve me, that kind of made me see addiction in a different way.
Right.
It made me see that even though I don't think people care about me, how bad they would be affected if I wasn't here.
Right.
And so I had to fight, because I didn't want my son to have to go through that. I did not want my family to have to go through that. So even on the days where I wanted to give up, I knew I couldn't put them through that, because I felt that kind of pain. And then I was also in school when it happened, because I had committed myself to finishing. I was a high school dropout, and we together, me and my husband that passed, we decided I'd stay in school because he didn't have a good record. Like, what if something happened? I needed to have my career in place. And when he died, I stayed in school and I finished and I got my 4-year degree, but it was hard. And we just, so I'm glad I did. But what happened was I was working part-time while I was in school, and I was a bartender. And that's not a simple thing to do, but drugs are more my thing. But I had talked about it, and I had committed that if it was a problem, I'd just walk out. But when I served the people, I served them alcohol, I got to see the transformation that happened, and that too kept me sober. I know that sounds very strange, but I looked at that and I was like, I'm so glad that's not me. So there was a couple of things that happened that really made a difference.
Well, that would be extremely tough to be in sobriety and be a bartender.
Yeah, I couldn't taste my drinks. Everybody was always trying to buy me shots, and like, you don't want Godzilla going off in here, believe me. I just come out. This is not the person you get when I'm drunk. So, yeah, it was, but there are people that are sober that can do that. Look, but it's something that you have to know about yourself, but there's very few that can.
Right.
Okay. I just wanted to share my experience and what kept me sober during that time, and like some things that I remembered.
Right.
Why that happened, because I always do remember that. But I would have left any job to keep my sobriety, just walked out during my shift, because if I saw myself going there, because drugs were more the thing for me, but I was totally an alcoholic, and I still am, then I would have taken care of myself to do that.
Was your husband dying from a drug overdose your rock bottom?
Which rock bottom? Because I've had some rock bottoms in sobriety, and then that was definitely in life a rock bottom, but I was sober. I think it just woke me up. Like, I've had a lot of things that have woke me up to something different, because a lot of things people don't talk about is when you have addiction, you could potentially have a lot of addictions.
Right.
Okay. So that woke me up to, I can never do this again. That was kind of a bottom for me, like, because of the people that it would hurt and that I care about deeply, like I said before. But I've had a lot of things that have shifted a lot of big movements in my life. And that's why I'm here today to talk about this, because they're pretty profound.
Right. So the one thing that I like about your story is what you are working on now and the approach that you are taking to help others. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, this is not anything that I planned, okay? This is not anything that I planned, because I've always been a very private person, because the way that I lived, I always had people trying to find me, and, it's like I had to always hide. I would put myself in the witness protection program without actually being in one, just to stay away from the people,
Wow.
because it would draw me back in. And so I was always very private. I didn't even have a Facebook account or anything, because I just was like, I don't want them to find me. But so I had some things happen in my life that everything just started shifting. And my whole sobriety, I've just been like kind of angry and upset about, well, I have this problem. Why do I have to have this problem? And like one day I was just really angry, thinking, why do I always get all the terrible things to happen to me? And then I just realized what an impact it is that I have not just survived addiction, but that I have moved beyond it and become very successful in business, and that I have been a very a person that's a leader that in the community, because I work with juveniles and I mentor them. And I also have worked with women who are coming out of abuse, and I've helped them do things to gain skills to get back in the workforce. So I've been doing all of this stuff for a long time, but what I realized is I needed to do it in a bigger place, because this is not the norm. What has happened to me is not the norm. And I'm pretty fortunate that I have business skills. And then later I was trying to get to be a better speaker. And so I took a comedy class, and I didn't realize that I had natural talent in it, and that all my weirdness and quirkiness was for a reason. And that could be used, because look, all of this stuff that I've been through is so dark and it's so painful. Nobody wants to listen, and how can people get inspiration for that? People want to hear the happy ending. They want to hear the fairy tale.
Right.
And I felt I didn't have the fairy tale till I started doing comedy and thinking, this is so hilarious. My whole life's been a joke. And that I should actually share this, because it's really funny. I mean, all the things that I thought I knew at 17, and I really didn't know them. And, one of the things in my show is I thought I was going to be a responsible drug addict. Like I had all these rules to show
Right.
that I was responsible.
You meant well.
And I believed it.
Right.
And so what I realized was that nobody finds that talent like at the age I'm at, and it just appears, and that this is something I can do to break a lot of barriers with things that are very tough, and that I could segue the things and personal stories in my life and the trauma, all the stuff that I've been through, into a lot of areas where people can identify it, because it's a human experience, maybe not exactly the same, but I can make it relatable and make people laugh at themselves, because how hard is it to laugh at yourself when you're going through some
Right.
tough things?
Oh, for sure.
I mean, it's very tough, and people don't realize. I'm kind of taking away all the excuses that I'm using that people have, because if you see my history, you'll know that I've been through everything.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't really say, well, you haven't done this or you haven't done that. I have, and I have come out of it. So, I'm just making people be able to laugh at everything in life. It really is funny, and there's nothing that's going on tragic that we can control anyway. So why not just say, this is supposed to happen? I mean, like my husband passing away, I mean, I met him, and look, I wasn't allowed to have fun when I was a kid. Like it was on accident when we had fun, because my mom was trying to protect us from all of these things. And my husband did things in a bigger way, and he taught me how to do it on a bigger level. So I just, I thought about him when I figured this out. I'm like, I am not going to die without doing something that I know I'm meant to do, first of all. And then also, I'm not going to let people take that from me. Right? Because that was his last chance to do anything. That day he's gone, and he died when he was 33.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so I'm not going to go down like that. I've worked so hard in my life to get where I'm at, and I'm going to have fun going out, okay? And if people want to join me, that's fine, and if they don't, that's fine too, because I'm still going to have fun.
You're bringing a refreshing and a very unique approach to a comedy routine angle.
Mm-hmm.
And so your first comedy routine is May the 15th.
Yeah, it's May the 15th. Now, this is more inspirational and some stand up. I can do stand up on its own, but I really want people, instead of writing a book, I wrote a comedy show because And of course, and I get to relate with people that way. And the people that have been there through the whole process, they can celebrate with me. But yeah, I'm doing a comedy show, and it's about my life. And everything in comedy is tragedy. But I have years of material. Okay, I don't even have to make stuff up. I can
Right.
just use it for my own life. And I also started a podcast. It's called 12 Step Idiot, and uh, and I just tell a lot of things about myself and jokes so people can listen to it during the day if they're having a bad day, so they can see they're not by themselves.
Right.
That they can laugh about things that are so hard.
I will add that information on this podcast as well so they can see, along with maybe a
Yeah,
clip of your video from your
it's
your
it's
stand
hilarious.
up.
It's hilarious, especially the things that I say about my mom coming to pick me up. Like I call her to bring the truck. Every time I was gonna break up with a guy, and bring the truck, and I'd have my boxes sitting there on the curb. And she'd ask no questions. She'd just come with
She
the
knew
truck.
what it meant.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a tough ride, but now I don't have any regrets. And how many people can say that? It's
Absolutely.
it's a great life.
I I'll share a little bit about stand up comedy that I hadn't mentioned to you yet.
Okay.
Several years ago, for the past 25 years, I've done female bail bondsman and bounty hunting. They call it skip tracing. And I decided that I wanted to, well, we were planning a trip, my son and my mom and I, to New York City. And I thought, because I've been a single mother throughout from almost the day he was born, I decided to do a comedy skit of my own based around me being a single parent and bonding and bounty hunting and everything. And I actually performed at Stand Up New York.
Oh,
And
that's
it was the
wow.
most exciting thing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know I was talking to a celebrity for sure.
Well, I mean,
Maybe
that was
I
my
should get an
15
autograph.
minutes of fame, okay?
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I already knew you were a celebrity because I looked you up, and let me tell you, what the work that you're doing, you are a celebrity because we're not easy people, okay? And what you're doing out there, and really getting everybody's perspective, because look, we don't. That's another thing too. We don't have a glowing reputation, and I'm trying to bring that, okay?
Right.
Because not all of us are not all of us are how you perceive it, and there's some great people and very talented people,
Yes,
uh, and incredible people that are doing incredible things out there in the community that have addiction, and
absolutely.
all of them, and those people need to be acknowledged, by the way.
Absolutely.
And
We have
you
several here.
you need to be acknowledged for the work you do, because this takes a lot of work to set up the podcast and all of that, because I've been doing it. It's not easy.
Right.
And the technology never works. I mean, nothing ever works, and you're always doing it yourself. So kudos to you for
Well,
what you're
thank
doing.
you. Thank you very
Please
much.
keep.
Yes, yes, I do plan on continuing with the podcasting. I enjoy it, and I think people sharing their stories, it's helping them. It helps others to open up.
Mhm.
I love your fresh approach on it as well, and I cannot wait to see the stand up routine.
Yeah, I've got tons of jokes too that I've worked on for recovery stuff that is hilarious. I'm gonna do my own tour on that as well. But I get the show out of the way. It's kind of like my biography, and it's kind of
Right.
like my introduction to what I'm doing now. But yeah, I mean, I can't wait because I've already practiced some, and I've done some in
Hmm.
different groups, and they loved it.
Right.
So I can't wait.
Where is the routine going to be in Houston?
So it's going to be at Ovations nightclub, and it's near, right near. It's off of Kirby and 59, so it's on the way to downtown. But it's in a great area, and it's a very intimate setting. And actually, I have a Facebook ad out there right now for it. And I just want people to come celebrate life, okay?
Right.
And like let's laugh about it, and because there is something to celebrate. We take everything for granted.
Right.
Where when you've gone through some things that are really, really difficult, you look at it differently.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it takes a while, like me. I'm a slow learner, but it takes what it takes, and it doesn't matter if it's slow, because I learned so much at each turn, and now I get to share that with people
Right.
and help have a better life. And I wouldn't choose any other career.
Absolutely. Well, I'm excited for you. I can't wait to see it.
And if I can help you, later down the line, please let me know, because I got a lot of experience with this kind of stuff. And like I said before, you're doing great things. Thank you for all the support for our kind of people. Okay.
Thank you, Michele.
Thank you.
And as your business progresses, we'll do another podcast.
Okay, that'd be great. Yeah, I'd love to share where it goes and
right.
What is, because you can plan on life, but it doesn't matter.
Right.
It's going to play itself out anyway.
Absolutely. Life is going to throw some curveballs, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I got my glove ready to catch them, so I'm ready.
Okay, thank you very much, Michele.